Exactamente, sí, se puede hacer eso. Estamos trabajando con bitcoins. Va a llegar un momento que yo, cuando esté implantado igual que vos, te voy a poder compartir bitcoins, o sea, moneda digital. Si vos necesitas saldo, yo te voy a poder pasar, ¿no? Y con la SUBE también estamos trabajando para poder pagar con la mano.
¿Y si se termina el dinero?
La idea es desplazar las llaves y las tarjetas. Ya tenemos hecho un prototipo de un cajero automático que cuando acercas la mano te entrega dinero.
Tiene que responder muchas preguntas de conspiranoides, digamos, con el chip. Ahora sabes a dónde voy, dónde estoy, ves todo lo que hago.
Sí, la que más me gustó y la que más me causó gracia fue la del 666, que bueno, solamente lo entenderán los que están en alguna religión, cosa que yo no, pero bueno, tuve que estudiarlo también. Justo yo estaba explicando que esto, nosotros ya logramos poder comprar y vender con esto, y da la casualidad que en la Biblia hay una fracción de una lectura donde dice que llegará un momento en donde si no tenés una marca en la mano derecha no podrás ni comprar ni vender. Y bueno, justo, o sea, sí, miró con lo que yo estaba explicando y casi me matan. La idea es que nosotros tenemos un prototipo que estamos preparando ahora, que vos con este microchip vas a poder pagar, vas a poder cobrar, vas a poder vender todo con el simple hecho de estar implantado. Nosotros lo que tenemos acá es un prototipo de un cajero automático que funcionaría, o sea, tal cual a un cajero automático. Lo que queremos dejar en claro, esto no es una moda, ya llegó, lo tenemos nosotros en el país, somos los únicos, y de acá en más queda en que bueno, la mayoría de la gente lo tenga, y lamentablemente por ahí va a llegar un momento que el que no lo tenga va a haber ciertas cosas que no lo va a poder hacer, pero bueno, nosotros estamos para desarrollar. Lamentablemente por ahí va a llegar un momento que el que no lo tenga va a haber ciertas cosas que no lo va a poder hacer.
All honor, praise, and glory be to Yahweh, Bashem Yahushua, Wahakodash Wakad, double honors to the apostles and the elders at the great millstone who were well. Peace and blessings to the brothers teaching the truth across the four corners of the earth, where we have been scattered to due to the breaking of the covenant, which is a deal made by our forefathers with the Most High, God, right? Who people ignorantly call God. And to the rest of you believers out there, you women, children, friends of the prophets of the Israelite nation, which consist of the so-called blacks, a.k.a. Negroes, a.k.a. African Americans, so-called Hispanics, so-called Latinos, or a.k.a. Latinos, Latinas, so-called Native American Indians, West Indians. To all you, I say peace and blessings if you're proving your faith by your works, all right? And it's hard, but you got to keep going. Now, the so-called white man wants to chip, right? The so-called white man wants to chip Esau, right? That's why we say so-called. So-called white man wants to chip you so-called Hispanics, you so-called Latinos, so-called Latinas. He wants to chip you all, man, right? But here you are, been spending your time not listening, not turning back to your heritage when you truly know the truth, you know? So I just have a few scriptures lined up, and the chip is the RFID chip. Is what you've seen, and it is the mark of the beast. So before I go into any of this, I'm gonna start with this. This is Hosea 7 and 8. Ephraim, he had mixed himself among the people. Ephraim is a cake not turned. Now, Ephraim is interchangeable for the 10 tribes, right? Which is now 9, because Dan, the tribe of Dan, is no more. The 10 tribes that traveled to the Americas, which is talked about in the second chapter, Esdras, in the second book of Esdras, the 13th chapter, in the 40th verse. All right? And that lines up with the so-called Hispanics, a.k.a. Latinos, Latinas, Chicanos, Taino Indians, so-called Native American Indians. That lines up with you all, right? So the 10 tribes of Israel traveled to an unknown land, right? Which was eventually conquered by the so-called white man, and the people of the land, in the eyes of the Lord, is nutshelled as being known as the 9 tribes, right? The 10 tribes is nutshelled as being Ephraim. And we can prove that real quick. I'm not going to pull it up on the screen, but you can go search it. This is Psalm 60, and I'm going to start at verse 7. I'm going to start at 6. You know what? I'm going to start at verse 1. O power, thou, O God, thou hast cast us off. Thou hast scattered us. And the us talking about the Israelites. Thou has been displeased. O turn thyself to us again, which is why you ended up in the land where no man had where no man had ever dwelt. Okay. Now I'm gonna jump down to verse 3. Thou hast shewed thy people hard things. You see, thou hast shewed thy people hard things. And what's the hard things? The curses. Right? Who is his people? His people is the Israelites, man. It tell you that in Psalm 78. I'll get it real quick just for edification's sake, just in case it may be a new listener. This is Psalms 78, and I'm going to start at verse 70. He chose David. I'm going to start at verse 68. But the tribe of Judah, the Mount Zion, which he loved, and he built his sanctuary like high places, like the earth which he established forever. He chose David also, his servant, and took him from the sheepfolds, right? Because David is an Israelite, and the Israelites are likened unto sheep, right? In the Lord's eyes, according to the scriptures. So the sheepfold is all the Israelites. David said David was taken. But anyway, verse 71, from following the ewes great with young, he brought him to feed Jacob, his people. You see, Jacob is interchangeable for Israel, and Israel, his inheritance. You see that? So the Lord's people are the Israelites. And really quick, see if I want to get something else on that. I said, this is for edification's sake. This is not what the lesson's about. Psalms 53 and 6, to double down on this, because the scriptures say you establish a matter by 2 or 3 witnesses, right? Let every matter be established. So this is solid that the Lord's people is the Israelites, are the Israelites. It says, Psalms 53 and 6, oh, that the salvation of Israel will come out of Zion. When God, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah, bringeth back the captivity of his people, Jacob shall rejoice, and Israel shall be glad. You see that? So back to the point. So the Lord's people is Israel, right? Jacob, the Israelites, all those the Israelites who today are known as so-called blacks, aka Negroes, aka African Americans, so-called Hispanics, aka Latinos, aka Latinas, and so-called Native American Indians, all right? West Indians, whatever. Psalm 60 and 3. So it says, start at 1 again. O God, thou hast cast us off. Thou hast scattered us. Thou hast been displeased. O turn thyself to us again. Verse 3. Thou hast shewed thy people, see, the Israelites, hard things, the curses, the conditions we in, the rigorous conditions, right? The trying of our faith, the testing of our integrity. It says, thou hast made us to drink the wine of astonishment. You see that? Verse 4, thou hast given a banner to them that fear thee. And that's going into the standard, token, a sign, that it may be displayed because of the truth. So those that have turned back of the Israelite nation, which consists of all the so-called nationalities I named, right? So-called blacks, aka Negroes, Hispanics, and Native American Indians, right? The ones that have awakened, the awakened Israelites, they have the truth. And that's what we teach. That's the phrase you hear us say, we have the truth. They say, thou hast given a banner to them that fear thee. When you fear the Lord, you do what he says. It tells you that in the 15th chapter, I believe, of Proverbs. But this is not about that. We just going to get to the point and keep it short. Now, it says that it may be displayed. When you're trying to display something, you're trying to show something off for it to be received, right? And bought. right? You're trying to attract those that I guess it will radiate, or those that will gravitate towards it. Okay? And that's you Israelites, you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians, you have an inclination for God. You see that? So when we raise up this truth, we have the sign. If you're of the hopeful elect, because if you're of the 2/3, yeah, you might agree that this is the truth, but you still won't turn towards it. But this is the display. We display it because of the truth. You so-called Hispanics, Latinos, Native American Indians, you are Israelites, and God has nutshelled you in his eyes as Ephraim. So we're displaying this. I'm displaying this because it's the truth. Now, I'm going to jump down to the point, verse 7. Gilead is mine, and Manasseh is mine. Ephraim also is the strength of mine head. You see? Judah is my lawgiver. So what does it mean, Ephraim? There go Ephraim. Ephraim is the strength, because what they tell you, there's strength in numbers. When you go into that word strength, it tells you that it's force. It's like a guard. It's an army. Most of the warrior tribes are found in Ephraim, which is the 10 tribes. Gad is the so-called Native American Indians are warrior tribes. You know, so-called Issachar, so-called Hispanics, because most of the tribes are primarily made up of so-called Hispanics, Latinos, right? And you're all the same people as the so-called blacks, aka Negroes, African Americans, and West Indians. You're all the same people, and you know that. But that's my point of getting this. You see? So you are the strength of his head. The head tribe is Judah. Who is the head of the body? The head of the body is who people call Jesus Christ, Yahweh Shah HaMashiach. I'll get that really quick, and then we'll get to this before we go into the lesson. This is 1 Corinthians 11, and I'm going to start at verse 3. But I will have you know that the head of every man is Christ. You see, is Hamashiach. That's how you say Christ in the Hebrew. So, but I will have you know, see, because that's the banner, we are to display it because of the truth. But I will have you know that the head of every man is Hamashiach, and the head of the woman is the man, the Israelite woman. You see, the head of the Israelite woman is his Israelite man, and the head of Hamashiach, who people call Christ, is God, Yahweh, who people call God. You see that? So jumping back, so that's why Judah, it says in Psalm 60 and 7, Gilead is mine and Manasseh is mine. Ephraim also is the strength of mine head. You're the supporting cast, man. You're the supporting brother, because it's a majority of you. This majority of it's 10 tribes, and it's 9 tribes now, and you got the 3 tribes left, which is Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Today known as so-called blacks, aka West Indians. You see, blacks, Negroes, whatever, African Americans. You're all the same people. See, because it tell you in Joshua and Chronicles, I believe, that pretty much in the first chapter of Joshua, it tells you that Ephraim had got their, what's today known as Ephraim, got their inheritance first. And since they were warrior tribes and it was more of them in strength and numbers, they were to go before the head, you see? Because the head actually followed suit after Ephraim was set up with the land. So it make all the sense in the world. Ephraim was the first people in America. Ephraim was the first one to get their land in Israel. You see that? So it just makes sense. So-called, today known as so-called Hispanics and Native American Indians. Now, with that being said, this is the issue now. This is Hosea 7 and 8. Ephraim, he had mixed himself among the people. Ephraim is a cake not turned. So the so-called white man wants to chip you. Point being, right? But since you have gotten here and been conquered, you have assimilated yourself. You not only got conquered to the point there was race mixing and mingling, right? Because when you go into the word mix, balal, see, mingle, confuse, to fade away. So that's why the northern kingdom and southern kingdom, today known as Ephraim and Judah, right? Or the house of Israel and Judah. Okay, we can all produce lighter variances of brown, different variances of brown. That's on the spectrum wheel, if you will. You see, but due to assimilating, being conquered, and then eventually, taking on those axes voluntary. You see that? You actually faded away. Not only physically, you don't even, if you go back and look at pictures how y'all used to look when y'all first got here, everybody was completely dark, but you always had shades because the Lord is balanced. You know what I'm saying? It's like a very dark person can catch leprosy. That's in the scriptures. See that? So the Lord always dealt, he always, like, your body's not completely one complexion, but it's just proof of why things are the way they are right now. And you know that. It's in the history. The so-called conquistadors came over here. Hernan Cortez, he conquered the so-called Mexicans, the Aztecs. And then you got Christopher Colombo, or Christopher Colon. Then you got Bartholomew Colon, Columbus's brother. You see that? They came and they just wrecked shop, man. They infiltrated and they forced you to assimilate. But it got to the point now where you have did that voluntarily. And it's not just physically, but it's spiritually. So now a lot of you walk around disowning who you truly are. You want to have no dealings with the so-called blacks. You try to say you're not black. And most of you are darker than the so-called blacks. It makes no sense. So the Lord got something for you. Because you walk around all day like you have no dealings with so-called blacks. And we're talking about the majority of you. Not every one of you, but the majority of you. You do the same things. We do the same things. But at the end of the day, you try to go home and try to act like there's a difference. There's not a difference, man. There's no difference. You just this tribe, I'm this tribe. That's that. There's no difference, though. We come from the same sack, right? Period. We got the same grandfather, Jacob. All right? And the Lord going to get you for that. And we're going to get the scriptures. So you mixed yourself. Ephraim is talking about the Hispanics as well as the so-called Native American Indians. But primarily the Hispanics, really, because when you look at the rest of these tribes, the actual tribe Ephraim, Hispanic, or AKA Latino. Whichever one. You could say Hispanic, you could say Latino. I'll say Latino. Simeon, Latino. Ephraim is the so-called Puerto Rican. Simeon is the so-called Dominicans. Zebulon, so-called Latino. Guatemalans, Panamanians. Manasseh, Cubans, so-called Latinos. Gad, Native American Indians. Reuben, Seminole Indians. Naphtali, Argentinians, a.k.a. Chileans. Those are Latinos, so-called Latinos, right? So-called Latin. Asher, the tribe of Asher, Colombians, Uruguayan, more so-called Latinos. Issachar, so-called Mexicans, more so-called Latinos. So majority of the tribes, and the only other three tribes is left is Levi, Benjamin, and Judah. Judah being so-called Negroes, a.k.a. African Americans, and we scattered still in West Africa, some of us in Europe, we in Australia, all over the place, but primarily the highest concentration of the D tribe Judah is in North America, right? Benjamin, West Indians, so-called Jamaicans. More all Negroes though, right? Also called blacks, right? Levi, so-called Haitians, more so-called blacks, Negroes. So you see, majority of the tribes is so-called Hispanics. And you the very people saying that, so it's impossible for Judah to be black, but you not to be black. That makes no sense. You know? So we're going to go ahead and get into this. Let's just go to Chip real quick. Revelation 13 and 16. And he calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. You see that? So there is no exclusion, exception for you. You think you may get a little better treatment, but really, in a sense, it just depends on what area you're looking in. In some area, you might see the so-called blacks being treated a little better. In this area, you might see so-called Hispanics being treated a little better. But really, if you had to tally it out, we equally oppressed. Jeremiah 50 and 33. Jeremiah 50 and 33. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shah of hosts. The children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together. You see? And there's really no such, it's really that it's written like this because a split took place. But the children of Judah are the children of Israel. Because the tribe of Judah is one of the sons of Israel. And the children of Israel is another way of saying the 9 tribes or the 10 tribes. At this particular time when it was written, because Dan wasn't accounted as disappearing yet, being amalgamated, Salakia. Let's see. It says, if I pronounced that right, Salakia. If I didn't, it said the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. So you're not a so-called white person. They have on these little identity things where you put your race when you go like to the doctor. You got to go sign some paperwork. What's your nationality? It's a particular one that me and one of the Akfam, me and the Akmahar, we found. And pretty much, Lord willing, I get a chance, I'll go into it. Now, on it tells you that I believe so-called, I don't know if it's the Arabs, can pretty much, if they got it to where on this particular one, some paperwork that I was filling out one day, it's a particular one that say the Arabs, if you're Arabs, you could say you're so-called white. And I think it might have been that case for the so-called Hispanics as well. I'm not sure. But I believe so, which is why I'm mentioning it. But either way, that's how a lot of you carry yourself, man. You try to denounce your heritage, man. When you're damn, come on, man. So the Lord gonna get you for that. And he getting you now. Just how they targeting the Israelites, right? Overall, that's what you're seeing for this RFID chip, which is the mark of the beast, right? It might throw what you think to be a so-called, what you just, not even you, but what the world may think to be just, even though the world even know, but as the world would publicly acclaim it to be a so-called black person, a little Negro child or Negro woman or a man, right? That's you too, and they showing you this now. You're a part of that. So it's by the Spirit this comes up. This came out straight in Spanish. Few words I was able to pick up on, but a lot of stuff, nah. But we have plenty of brothers, right? Awakened Israelites that that speak the Spanish tongue, the bastard tongue, the English tongue, the Spanish tongue, both bastard tongues, man. These are tongues of people who are without the Father. That's why they gave us the tongue, because we're the people that have the Father, right? And we speak the Father's language. Don't your kids speak the language you speak? You see that? So that's why the so-called white man beat it out of us. But point being, man, you're oppressed together. So just how they getting us, they getting you. And when you go into that word oppress, it's right here, Psalms 14 and 4. Have all the workers of iniquity no knowledge who eat up my people? Because even though you may act like that, you're still the Lord's people. And that's why he's showing you this. We're the face of the RFID chip. We're the face of the COVID vaccine. They targeting us. Why? Because It says, have all the workers of iniquity no knowledge, who eat up my people. And we already proved who the Lord's people is. Israelites, as they eat bread and call not upon the Lord. When you go into the word eat, it means to pretty much bring trouble to. You know? Let's get it real quick. You see? Salakia, to waste, destroy, and ultimately oppress. See, oppress. See that? And pestilence is disease. You know? So they constantly destroy us and make us waste away, having us work for them ultimately just to oppress us. And when you go into oppress, the synonym there is subjugate, right? Meaning we're pretty much forced to succumb to whatever the so-called white man wants us to due to his laws, and it be him being, you know, ahead of everybody right now due to our own shortcomings with the Father, because we're above all people. But nonetheless, that's what is going on, man. They target us for their oppression. They target us for their release of oppression, for their release of oppressing. When they want to oppress, they come straight to us, man. So-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians, man. Blacks, aka Negroes, Hispanics, and Native American Indians. Latinos, whatever, Latinas, whatever, right? They come straight to us, so-called Native American Indians. They make us the face of everything. And half the time, you may think you're looking at a so-called Negro. That could be a so-called Native American Indian. A lot of times you think you're looking at a so-called Native American Indian. That could be a so-called, just regular so-called black person. A lot of times you may think you're looking at a so-called Hispanic or Latino. That's just a regular Native American Indian or a regular so-called black person. You see? Because you're the same people. But the Lord's going to make that known and understood and clear. So that's why he gave us this in Spanish, man. I'm trying to chip so-called Hispanics, going into the RFID chip implants in your hand in Spanish, man. Talk shows, the so-called Hispanics sitting down, man. They targeting us because they eat us up. They put that mental pressure up, because when you're going to eat up, it takes you in to oppress. And when you're going to oppress, it means mental pressure, man. They apply the pressure of you wanting to be able to take care of your kids. So they use this bait of wickedness. Here, do it. And you got to end up doing it. You got to take the shitty job just to, you see? And ultimately, you got to take that mark of the beast, man. That chip. Revelation 3:10. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation. You see, which shall come upon all the world. What world? The world of Jacob, man. Which I'll get in just a second. Let me finish this real quick. To try them that dwell upon the earth. So they're gonna try all the inhabitants of the earth, but we just read how they target us. The Lord made that noted. The workers of iniquity eat up his people in a way that they're clearly targeting us. See that? I got some real quick. This is Isaiah 3:15. What mean ye that beat my pieces to my Salaki? What mean ye that ye beat my people to pieces and grind the faces of the poor, saith the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. You see? So the Lord, he's seeing all this. Why? Because it's Esau versus Jacob. Also, so-called Native American Indians, Hispanics, aka so-called Latinos, aka Latinas, so-called blacks, African Americans, so-called Negroes. You make up Jacob, and so-called white people, no matter if they're Jewish, German, Swedish, Polish, whatever, they make up Esau. See that? Trailer trash, Wall Street shark, that's Esau. Esau versus Jacob. So that's why it's targeted. You see? Now, So the Lord is seeing this, and he's noting this as that. Now, really quick, he said it's going to come, the hour of temptation. The hour of temptation is when that mental pressure is applied. What? The eating up by the workers of iniquity. You see that? Because you don't, he set it up to where he tried to keep you away from knowing all of this. And you see, majority of our people, they will be kept from knowing this. They don't see any hope. They're going to walk, they're going to get it how they live. You know? They don't believe in the Most High no more. That's what the so-called white man has done to them. I got something real quick. Isaiah 55:6. Seek ye the Lord while he may be found. Call ye upon him while he is near. But our people don't know this. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. You see, his thoughts. And let him return unto the Lord, and he will have mercy upon him and to our God. You see, for he will abundantly pardon. You see, so the Lord, he's pretty much. This is why this is a fight, and it's so important to do the work, because Esau is trying to keep our people from knowing this. So our people think there's no hope, and they think they have to succumbing to the so-called white man. You know, we have the creator of heaven and earth, who's, you know, he's a king. He's the king of the earth, man. Yahweh Shai is the king of all kings. You know, and pretty much, man. I'm trying to think of something else I wanted to get on this real quick. But that's what he's that's why it's the hour of temptation. You know? Because you got one thing that's true, right? But then you got this other part that want to do his own thing. You see? That's like the dilemma. Flesh want to do it, but spirit know it ain't right. You know, that's a temptation. You know, and even if the spirit don't know, the spirit may know about right the zeal, right? I can't take that, but you don't, because that's not. I don't think this right. But you able to be tempted because, and possibly overcome because you truly don't know, according to knowledge, that this is literally targeting you, and the Lord does not want you to take this, and you have nothing to worry about if you don't. Really, you know. So-called white man could put you to death, but our people is promised immortality. But most of our people will not know that, so they're going to succumb to the fear, to that temptation. And they're going to take that chip, man. You know? That's just how it's going to go. I got something real quick. This is Isaiah 28:15. I'm going to start at verse 14. It says, wherefore hear the word of the Lord Yahweh, ye scornful men that rule his people which is in Jerusalem, because ye have said, we have made a covenant with death, and with hell are we at agreement. When the overflowing scourge shall pass through, it shall not come unto us. You see, for we have made lies our refuge, and under falsehood have we hid ourselves. You see, so the Lord, he knows all. He knows exactly how our people think, man. You think because if you adhere to the so-called white man, you suck up, you just get it, everything's gonna be all right. The Lord don't see it. He ain't really. The book is just an algorithm. Yeah, I know we the Hebrews, but that's the farthest you think you could just say, and it's nothing else is required from you knowing that, and even letting that come out of your mouth. You know, the Lord is gonna trod you down, man. That's what's gonna happen. But nonetheless, it says, I'm going to go ahead and get the point closed. It's out Revelation 3:10, because thou hast kept the word of my patience. I will also keep thee from the hour of temptation. Those of you that know this is true, the RFID chip being the mark of the beast, you Hispanics and Native American Indians so-called out there that know it, you Israelites, right? Men, women, and children that know this, right? That have learned this, that have been awakened to this. You know this is wrong, so the Lord is going to keep you from it. You're going to be like, man, I'm not. Go ahead, do what you got to do, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, really, the Lord is in control. So you say you're going to do this and don't even do it. You see? The Lord might give me the spiritual power. The Lord going to give me a way to eat. I'm not worried about buying and selling, whatever, man. You know, we keep his word. You know, we pray and stay humble, and hopefully he keep his spirit on us. You see? But anyway, and moving on, it says, which shall come upon all the world. What world? The world of Jacob. See? All you, not just so-called blacks and so-called Negroes, if you so-called Hispanics been seeing that, or you may think they Native American Indians as well, but you too, as well as you so-called Native American Indians. But Isaiah 45:17, I'm gonna start at 15. Verily thou art a God that hidest thyself, O God of Israel, the Savior. You see, he's only the God of Israel. It says, they shall be ashamed and also confounded. All of them shall go to confusion together that are a maker of idols. You think the so-called white man is the best thing that ever happened to technology. A lot of you his so-called Hispanics out there is just some sellouts, man. You work at all these banks. You got all these fake companies set up. You want to be just, Ephraim has mixed himself among people, man. You faded away. Your true essence of who you are, you know? Even if you kept your look, right? And let's even say that's not even really what that's talking about, ultimately, right? But it does, because that's what happened during the history, man. You know? But ultimately, you have just faded away in essence, man. You may have kept the look, whatever it may be, closer to how we looked when we came over here. Y'all came over here, right? But inwardly, you a damn Edomite, man. You think like Esau. You see, so they shall be ashamed and also confounded. All of them shall go to confusion together that are makers of idols. But Israel, those that, I'm not Aztec, I'm not Chicano, I'm not none of these things, man. I'm an Israelite, Yasha Allah, right? From whatever respective tribe I understand myself according to the scriptures and truth to say I am. You see, but I know I'm an Israelite. Period. These curses are upon the Israelites. This is who we are. See? But Israel shall be saved in the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, with an everlasting salvation. Ye shall not be ashamed nor confounded, world without end. See that? So that's the world talked about right here. He's going to come upon all the world. You got the world of Esau, but then you got the world of Israel. That's showing you as many worlds. So all these Israelites is going to be, all us Israelites will be tried. You know, we're all going to be subject to it. You know, God so loved the world. Yeah, the Israelite world, man. You know, I got plenty of other scriptures. And then I can get something in John 1 and 1 real quick. So he said the whole world. If you're an Israelite, you're of the Israelite world, period. Because that's how Esau look at you. But even on the flip side, although they be of Israel, all are not Israel. So you could be just walking around. Now, I don't claim that. So, okay, you will just be, you still going to be tried, because this is Esau's world. Esau runs the world. And you just happen to have many other little worlds running in them, like the Israelite world, which is consisting actually of just the awakened Israelites, you know? Because without that, the Israelite world will be no more. So the Lord had to wake us up so this scripture can stand true. All right? I'm going to get some in St. John real quick. St. John in the 1st chapter. 1, and I'm going to start at 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. It's supposed to say was a God. You see? Now, it says, verse, it tell you that the Word was made flesh. So it's talking about Yahushua, because it wasn't, Yahushua is the word, as it tells us in Revelation 19 and I believe 21, if I'm not mistaken. But it says, verse 14, and the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. So it's talking about so-called Jesus Christ, Yahushua, right? And so-called Jesus Christos. You see, it's Yahushua, Hamashiach. And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. You see, now this is my point, verse 10. He was in the world. You see, what world? The world of Israel, man. and the world knew him not. And the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. He came unto his own. What was Yahushua? Israelite. And his own received him not. See that? Because the word was sent to Israel, Jacob. As it tells us right here real quick, this is Isaiah 9 and 8. So it says, the Lord sent a word into Jacob, and it had lighted upon Israel. You know, Yahushua said out his own mouth, he only came for the Israelites. So that was that world. See, so the world that God so loved is talking about the Israelite world. So all the Israelites, right, will be tried. No matter if you're so-called Hispanic, Black, Native American, Indian, you will be tried, as you see. And the Lord is letting that be 100% known. And it's beautiful, man. This word is true. It's untouchable. Not a be it on that. Zechariah 12 and 7, the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua also shall save the tents of Judah first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah. You see, because the Lord, that's by the Spirit, because that's all you did. That's all you did while we was going through this captivity. You know? How we niggas and you ain't a nigga. You just speak Spanish. You know? Because you got a language and a land. Man, look, man. So ultimately, the Lord gave the understanding primarily to so-called Negroes first, right? Because Judah is the lawgiver, you see? Or reason why, because it tell you in the scriptures that Judah had a sharper tongue. I believed in, I forget what tribe it was, but it was definitely of one of the Northern Kingdom tribes. Sharper tongues, you know? More ferocious, if you will. You know, but y'all warrior tribe, so don't get that mistaken. But this is why. And you're going to ultimately understand eventually, because we're going to close out on that, I believe, by the Spirit. But I got one more I want to get. Rejoice not, O Israel. Talking about there's another word for the Northern Kingdom, right? So-called Hispanics and Native American Indians. For joy as other people, for thou hast gone a whoring from thy God, thou hast loved a reward upon every corn floor. Now, what we know this is talking about the so-called Hispanics and Native American Indians, because I have something right here real quick. When you go into it, it's literally talking about corn. You see? You see corn floor. That's spiritual. That's a top food in so-called Hispanic or Salaki. Now, when you go into it, corn floor, ironically, corn, that's synonymous with Israel right there in that scripture. And we talking about so-called Hispanics and Native American Indians, right? When you go into Hispanic or so-called Latina culture, right? Corn is a heavy part of their diet, man. See that? Hispanic food list, so-called Hispanic. What's on there? Grilled corn. See that? And I'll have you know that every single one of these pieces of bread on here, right, is made out of corn. Tortilla, corn flour shells, man. I think empanadas, if I'm not mistaken. I know tacos, and then you have enchiladas, you know, and then you a lot of your fillings be with corn, like a lot of the sauces and stuff. You know, I eat, because that's really a lot of your cooking is just what we was eating in Israel. So I eat a lot of, you know what I'm saying, so-called Hispanic food. I grew up eating a whole lot of so-called Hispanic food, because a lot of your cooking is just Hebrew food, man, because that's who we are in essence. You know, that's what we like. We like the spicy food. We like, you know, that's why Jamaicans like, so-called Jamaicans make the jerk chicken. You know what I'm saying? You like the peppers and you eat a lot of produce and fruit, because the Israelites had agriculture. You see what I'm saying? But this is what allows you to be proud. So this is how we know this is talking about you. You see, oral food and identity amongst Latinos. Now, when you go into this, it says food can be explained in terms of identity. This is a PDF from a case study from the University of Notre Dame, right? Whatever. Now, So it says the topic of, I'm going to start right here real quick. It says the topic of food and how it pertains to a person's identity is a target of scholarly research. But why is food important to study? Professor Susan D. Klum, chair of the Department of Anthropology at the University of Notre Dame, answers both of these questions in an effective manner. All right. They say food can be explained in terms of power, social relations, identity. So that's why the Lord had that there in the scripture. Israel dealing with corn floors, aesthetic, religion, geography, gender, economics, and more. You see that? Now, we're going to go ahead and get to the point. Food plays an important part in identity. That this is true, but it helps to understand how people label themselves. You see their own identities as being. If the phrase "you are what you eat" is correct, then might not the opposite, you eat what you are, whole nother thing. But anyway, it says with a particular focus on so-called Mexican food, we conducted a survey on several topics trying to discern what exactly meant to be Mexican food from different people. What exactly meant to be Mexican food from different people, not just so-called Mexicans, and how they viewed food when it came to both so-called Mexican and their own identity. So this is about Hispanics. And not only, and it tells you this in this too, this research, that not only Hispanics, Mexicans are Hispanics, they're not the only people. All right. Now, so you got Latino and Hispanic. You see this? What's the difference? Whole nother thing, right? Now I'm gonna go ahead and get some of the foods. So you got on here tacos, burritos. Look, corn flour, burritos, corn flour, enchilada, corn flour, tortillas, corn flour, tamales, corn flour. I guess I don't know if that's salsa or salsa, but you got in salsa a lot of corn. Quesadillas, corn flour. You see that? Guacamole definitely has corn in it. You know, a lot of the guacamoles. Uh, I'll say. You know? So this is just something to prove that real quick. Now, what do you see right here? That's corn. See that? You can't make this up, man. All praise to the Father, Yahweh Shem, Yahweh Shah. All right, and I just want to get the food. Okay, okay, you got the chilies. It's a particular dish on here I seen, but as you can see, we seen it. And that's spiritual Reuben. All right, so yeah, I just got this because as I said, we know that the two or three witnesses establish the matter. So this is your two witness. All corn, man. You know, corn is heavy in the so-called Hispanic or Latino diet, man. And I believe so-called Native American Indians as well, because you came here together, you eating the same things. So-called black people eat corn too. Corn on the cob, barbecues. And they say that's really horse food. It's for cattle. So as you can see right here, tortilla. What is the tortilla made out of? More than likely corn. Empanadas, you see, it says are pastry shells that are filled with different types of fillings such as meat, cheese, corn, or vegetables. You see, it's not only is the breading made with corn, but you put corn on the inside. Look, made of a reaper or a raper is made of pre-cooked corn meal. See that? These corn pockets are excellent as a breakfast accompaniment accompaniment accompanying I can't even pronounce the word accompaniment as a tapa, a tapa. And that's pretty much it. You got tacos, that's definitely corn flour right there. Stuffed peppers, And then there you go, grilled corn. Although corn on the cob is traditional food in America, it's traditional. America was actually y'all's first. You see? So it's traditions, right? Stuff Jake might, people come up with like to do traditions. It says there's no reason you shouldn't still serve it in the fall. You see? Grilled corn on the cob is a popular so-called Mexican street food. The corn is shucked and grilled, so the kernels just begin to char. Then it's then served slathered in a sauce made of mayonnaise, chili powder, and other flavors. The combination of sweet, smoky flavors makes it a perfect side dish to charred broiled chicken or steak. And that's pretty much it on it. Hosea 9:1. Rejoice not, O Israel, for joy as other people. For thou hast gone whoring from thy God, thy power. Thou hast loved a reward upon every corn floor. The floor and the wine press shall not feed them. And the new wine shall fail in her. You see, they shall not dwell in the Lord's land, but Ephraim shall return to Egypt. You see, what's on the back of your US dollar? And they shall eat unclean things in Assyria. You see that? So that's spiritual, because corn really ain't no good for you. I believe it's a cattle food, man. But yeah. So you can't make this up, because Egypt is America and Assyria is actually America. It's denoting America, because that's how you got to America, Assyria, through Assyria. Verse 6, for lo, they are gone because of destruction. Egypt shall gather them up. Memphis shall bury them. And that's that RFID chip, man. They finna get all of you, because you're the Israelites, you so-called Hispanics and Native American Indians, man. Talking about you not this, we're not the same, and all this other stuff. You hate yourself. When you got J-Lo who came out saying that she's just a black girl from the Bronx and people trying to get on her. She is, man. She the same people as the so-called black people. She not black. We're not black. We're the Israelites. But she's right in making that connection. The woman Cortez, her last name is Cortez. I believe she's a politician. She said Latinos are black. More black. Why? Because the so-called white man don't want you making that connection. Fat Joe, he came out, said Hispanics or Latinos, they all black, man. You go to the islands, there's nothing but so-called African stuff going on. And a lot of these people really know the truth, but a lot of them do know they're Israelites. These celebrities and, stuff like that. People of the higher echelon, they know about the Israelites, man, but they don't have the truth. But they right making that connection, and everyone's flacking them. Their own so-called Hispanic people, Latinos, or really smoke just coming from everywhere, noise from everywhere. But a lot of you do agree with that not being true. And that's not true. You see? Verse 8, the watchman of Ephraim was with my God, but the prophet is a snare. You see, of a fowler in all his ways, and hatred in the house of his God. They have deeply corrupted themselves in the days of Gebed. Therefore, he will remember their iniquity. He will visit their sins. You see? So the Lord is he's tired of these so-called Hispanics and Native American Indians. He's about to get you, man. He's about to really get you. And I got one more real quick. Hosea 8:1, set the trumpet to thy mouth. He shall come as an eagle against the house of the Lord, because they have transgressed my covenant and transgressed against my law. So that's why he's going to let a lot of you fall to the hour of temptation, the hour of temptation. Israel shall cry unto me, my God, we know thee. My power, we know thee. Israel hath cast off the thing that is good. The enemy shall pursue him. You see, the enemy shall pursue him. They have set up kings, but not by me. You go out and vote. They have made princes, and I knew it not. Of their silver and their good. What are also called Hispanics and Latinos like wearing, man? You see? Have they made them idols that they may be cut off? You see? You worship the gold and silver more than you do the so-called, the Most High, man. Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua. It says, thou calf your power. Thy calf, O Samaria, another interchangeable name for Ephraim, right? Israel, Northern Kingdom, so-called Hispanics and Native American Indians. Samaria is another interchangeable name. Thy calf, O Samaria, have cast thee off. My anger is kindled against them. How long will it be ere they attain to innocency? You see, how long would it be ere they attain to innocency? So after so long, you gotta know you being full of crap, because that Santa Maria, it's not doing anything for you, man. You know, the damn what is it? Something, dang, what is it called? The Redento Cristo, all that, man. That's not the Lord, that's not what's up, man. That big old idol statue, man, doesn't do anything. The Lord does. For from Israel was it also. You see, the workman made it. Therefore, it is not a God, but the calf of Samaria shall be broken in pieces. So the Lord is about to come get you, and you're going to learn, man. You're not going to have no problem with the Lord. You know what I'm saying? Those of you that have awakened of the so-called Hispanics and Native American Indians, because you know it's true. But see, our people, the so-called white man wants to chip the so-called Hispanics and Native American Indians, man. He wants to get you. He wants to get the so-called blacks. You see, so-called browns, whatever you want to say. He wants to get you. You know, and now you're gonna see it in this order. You know, he gonna push Judah, so-called Negroes first as the face, man. Then it's gonna be you right after, man. Immediately. It says, and he shall set up, and the reason why, because they got to get the head first. Judah has a prophecy written that if Judah raise up, all of y'all gonna raise up. So they target Judah. They make sure Judah's the majority of Judah's crackheads, strung out, lovers of fame more than lovers of just all type of stuff more than lovers of God. If Judah off, that's the head, the whole body off, man. Your brain tells you to breathe and all this other stuff. So a lot of the influencers, as you notice, comes of the so-called blacks, aka Negroes, aka African Americans, man. You see, whatever they're polluted with, they're gonna pollute the body, the rest of the Israelite body, and that's the rest of you tribes. You see, because you're the strength. You know, but the head got to be together. So you ain't gonna have no problem after seeing this and understanding this. Isaiah 11:12, and he shall set up an ensign for the nations. He shall assemble the outcasts of Israel and gather together dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. You see, because we're gonna ultimately come out of it, but it's just gonna be the remnant. Most of our people are not gonna get it. They're not gonna stop saying not this, they not this. I'm not Israelites. Even so-called blacks, aka Negro, definitely them, because they the worst. You know. But the remnant will get it, the 1/3. All the places we have been scattered to, no matter if you're so-called Hispanic, Native American, Indian, Latino, Latina, Latinx, whatever, West Indian, black, Irish Negro, European Negro, whatever it is, African American Negro, whatever. If you get this truth of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah, that you're an Israelite, you believe, you got the faith with your works, you're gonna be straight. The Lord, if you're of the Lord's elect. Isaiah 11:13, so stay humble. The envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. You see? Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. The Lord gonna kill that spirit, because that's what the so-called white man has really, set up and whatever. And then all Jake just proud anyway, so a lot of the Hispanics were just being on some proud stuff, Native American Indians, whatever, man. Everybody proud. It's Negroes being proud, everybody being proud. So Lord Willing has been edifying. The so-called white man wants to chip in the so-called Hispanics and Native American Indians. They're targeting the Israelites. Brown people. So-called brown people. They say the so-called Native American Indian is red as well. So-called red people, when they're the red people, the Edomites. So-called white people, they're red. You're brown. So Lord Willing has been edifying. Shalom.